So in this differential equation, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to find a specific solution or a particular solution. This IVP abbreviation stands for initial value problem. We know when x is 0, the y coordinate is -2. So we'll be able to use this condition right here at the very conclusion of this to figure out what our constant of integration actually is. Now, if you're going to solve a differential equation by separating your variables, probably going to be best to go with Leibniz notation. And so we'll go ahead and we'll do that here. You want to separate your variables now, so you have to get the dy and any y's on one side of the equation, the dx and any x's on the other. If you kind of treat this like a proportion and cross multiply, that's going to give you y dy when you multiply this numerator by that denominator, and that's going to give you this numerator, x minus 1, times the dx. Now, if you want to solve the differential equation, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to undo the differentials by doing the antiderivative on both sides of your equation. When you do the antiderivative of y with respect to y, you're going to add 1 to the power, you're going to divide by the new power, and then when you do the antiderivative of x, you're going to get x squared over 2, add 1 to the power, divide by the new power, and then the antiderivative of 1x to the 0 is going to be 1x to the first divided by 1, or just plain old x. This is the side with our independent variable on it, so that's the side we want to tack our constant of integration onto. And what we want to try to do is we want to try to figure out what our explicit solution is, meaning let's try to solve this for y. So to solve this for y, we'll multiply by 2 to start things off, and that'll leave us with y squared on the left, and then multiplying this term by 2 is going to cause the 2 in this denominator to go away. It's going to cancel with the 2 that we're multiplying by. Multiplying this term by 2 is going to give us minus 2x. Now when I multiply c by 2, technically I get a 2c. I don't know what c is. I don't know what 2c is. And so I'm not going to overcomplicate things. I'm just going to leave that as some constant that I still have to eventually find the value of. If you leave this as a 2c, you'll still be able to develop the proper particular solution as long as you're careful from this point forward. Now, to completely solve this for y, we have to do a square root of each side. Now, this is the part that gets a little tricky, because when you take a square root, you've got to consider the positive root and the negative root. So you've got this expression under that root. Now, what we want to do is we want to try to figure out what our constant c is. If you look at this condition right here, when x is 0, y is -2, when you apply that condition, and I didn't think this out very well, I'm going to kind of work up here at the top of the screen, but when you apply this condition, I'm putting 0 in for my x's. I don't know what c is. I do have a root. I have to figure out which of these two symbols I need, either the positive or the negative, and I know that my y value, the number that's going to go here, is -2. Now, if you think about this, if I take away this negative right here, there's absolutely no way that the square root of something with a positive sign out in front of it can equal -2. So what that tells us is that for this particular solution, because the y that we see over here is negative, the only way to have the right side of the equation be negative is if we have the negative coefficient out in front of the root. And so when we go ahead and try to solve this, we can divide both sides by -1, and that'll give us 2 equals, well, let's see, this is just 0 minus 0 plus c, so that's going to be square root of c. And if I square both sides, I get 4 as my value for c. So my specific solution is going to end up being y equals negative, because that was the sign that we had to use in order to attain a negative value for y. Negative x squared minus 2x plus the value that we just found for c, plus 4. Now over here I said you have the option of leaving this as a 2c. If you had done that, you would have gotten c equal to 2 right here, but then when you do 2 times 2, you get the 4 in that position anyhow. So it's your preference as to how you handle it. Most textbooks, most professors are likely going to handle it the same way that I did here, and that would be to say, I don't know what c is, therefore I don't know what 2c is. You're going to get the same answer in the end as long as you're careful. So general solution is right here. We have to have the plus or the minus in front of the root in our general solution because we don't know if y is supposed to take on positive or negative values. But for our specific solution, our particular solution for this condition, we knew our y's had to take on negatives, and that's why we're including the negative as the coefficient in front of the root in our final answer for our particular solution.